and welcome to How to Deal When the Shit Gets Real podcast. I'm Rietta.
And I'm Connie, and today we are here with Stephanie Thompson. So, Stephanie, how do you deal when shit gets real? And just tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. It's pretty phenomenal to be able to speak to people on the other side of the world and make it feels like we're in my kitchen having a cup of tea. So that's awesome. So I am Stephanie Thompson. I am a mum to two little people who are just turned 6 and 4. I'm a wife. Yeah, they're so cute. Yeah.
Cute and psycho all at the same time.
If you would have asked me that at 7 p.m. last night when they wouldn't go to bed, I probably would use a different word, but that's okay. I do love them dearly. They are our life. My husband and I really love being parents. It's hard. And that's another whole story, like how shit gets real when you become a parent for the first time and you realize, hey, wow, this is so different to what the brochure said. What?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that's coming to me in 6 months. Slightly terrified.
For real, Connie. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah,
that's amazing.
thank you.
Are you sure you want to hear this story right now?
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I think that I wish I would have had someone say things to me about childbirth, I guess, back then. But when you're in it, you don't know what you don't know. And it's really hard to take stuff in because so much is happening.
Hey, I'm only 14 weeks along and every single day is a very different day. And I'm like, why? What is this? I don't remember this being discussed in health at all. And if somebody would have discussed it, maybe the situation wouldn't even be happening. And I am not even that far along. Everything else, like I know labor and delivery and postpartum is rough to say the least. And yes. I'm like, I'm just going to put on my blinders. I don't even want to know. It's going to terrify me. I'll just put on my blinders until we get there and then I'll deal with it.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that strategy whatsoever. I'm putting my blinders on to teenagehood.
Oh, God.
I don't want to know about that just yet. And I think that's just a coping mechanism of human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we went off on our little kid tangent, was there anything else you wanted to add before we start drilling you with questions?
No, I think jump into it because I think a lot of mums, we really actually get lost and stumped on that question. We don't know who we are anymore because motherhood redefines us as humans. So when I say I'm Steph Thompson, all I know myself right now to be in this past 6 years is Steph Thompson mum. So yeah, I'm fine to kick off. It's all good.
Well, one thing that I really love that you wrote in your pre-interview stuff was that you were someone who didn't like school and then you ended up becoming a principal. So I want to hear that story.
Sure. Well, let's go back. When I say I didn't like school, I actually don't think it liked me. I was like a square peg in a round hole. Wasn't academic, wasn't sporty, wasn't creative. My sister was a high achiever, so I always had her a few years above me kind of winning everything, and she was the captain, and why can't you be more like your sister? And I was like, I don't know. I actually don't know why. So I never really enjoyed it in the sense that I never felt I really achieved anything. I wasn't smart enough. And so I think I overcompensated by trying to try and fit in with the cool kids. And my friends were the cool kids. But there was some really mean shit going on even in that circle. And so to me, I was really disengaged from learning. So I was too focused on trying to prove myself to friendship groups and people. This is all in hindsight, by the way. I'm like, this happened 25 years ago and I'm only realizing it now.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. I've had the same talks about like friend groups. Like, why did we let her bully all of us?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, we never talked to each other to see that she was talking shit about everybody else. Like, nobody was actually like talking about the shit other people were saying. I was like, wait a minute. Now that shit wouldn't even fly.
Yeah. Or even just asking yourself the question, why am I friends with this person at all?
Yes. Why am I saying this person is my best friend when they treat me like absolute rubbish? And I use that same behavior with other friends and then they don't like me. And it was like this vicious cycle of meanness.
Yeah.
So then, funnily enough, I kind of finished high school, and then I dabbled in a few different careers. I actually left to become a chef. And oh my
Ooh.
God, I hate cooking so much. Why did I think that was?
I thought that this was going to change my personality all of a sudden. Damn it.
Yeah. So I basically fell into going to university and studying to become a teacher because I love kids. And I thought, well, you know what? At least there's something I like. I think I can be good at it. I've always babysat when I was younger. So I fell into it. And then when I finished uni, I went on to teaching, and I really found my stride. I really saw the kids that were me, the ones that I thought were underdogs who never really got accolades just for being them. For showing up and just being, hey, this is just me. And so I really flourished in my career. I always had this ambition. I was super ambitious once I got into the system because I thought, stupidly, the people at the top had it really easy, and the people in middle management, not so bad, and the teachers had it the hardest. And so I was like, I'm going to get up there. I'm going to get up there, and I could still love kids, but I'm going to take it easy. And so
guessing that didn't turn out that way, huh?
Well, to be honest, I kind of, I was lucky that at one point I was at a really small school. There was only 3 of us, 2 teachers and a principal. And unfortunately, the principal got really sick. And I was just the next person in line to be the principal while she was away sick. So while I was doing that job, I was really young and coming up with a whole lot of barriers from the community and parents for being so young and in their eyes really life unexperienced because I hadn't had kids. I had to really prove myself. And I feel like the more I proved myself to them, the more I proved myself to me. And I was like, I'm good at this. It nearly killed me. Like I literally really, really fought hard, and I had to work around the clock. And sometimes I slept at school.
Oh my goodness.
For real. My husband bought in a lounge so that I could sleep at school because it saves the commute. I used to drive an hour each way.
Oh,
And
wow.
so then,
yeah, that's a long commute.
when the principal had recovered and returned, her boss saw something in me, which I love him for. And he said, I want you to be a principal at another school now. Would you consider it? I was like, hell yeah, I can do anything. I'm young and it was closer to home, and I can, and I did anything. But during that time, I was also trying to have a baby as well. I was trying to fall pregnant with my husband, and it wasn't happening. And it was just this one appointment where my obstetrician said to me, if you don't stop working in this high stress job where you are literally sleeping and working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that baby's never going to come. Your body won't be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to make the decision. And this is what I was referring to before, that when you get to the top, you look around and you're like, is this it? This is really lonely, actually. No one likes you. Everybody hates you. All you do is solve people's problems, parents' problems, community problems, children's problems. And I was no longer with the kids. I really missed what I loved most.
Yeah.
I was just in administration, and no one was ever happy with the level of effort you put in. Like, you do something for a kid, they love you for life. I'm sure there's kids out there now who will still remember me as their kindy teacher. Oh, she was amazing. The parents, you fix a problem and they're like, nah, I'm still going to complain about you because I can. So who wants to be sitting in that chair? I really had, and I guess too with past experiences in life in general, I know that life's too short for that. If you're unhappy, you have to leave. And so I did. I left altogether, and I went and did some private consulting in education still, but just a little bit more on my terms, which was good.
That's nice though. That you can like consult beyond your terms, still get to do what you trained for, all the things that you've learned come in handy. That's super nice.
I make it sound really easy, right? But
yeah, definitely. No, I'm kidding. I know it's not easy, but it just sounds like it's better because it's on your terms. You get to decide what you want to take and what you don't want to take.
Yeah.
It was a hard decision. The process took weeks, like writing lists of pros and cons. Should I stay in a system that's really, I know well, or should I take the leap and try something I've never done before? I might not be good at it. And I took the leap and I'd never look back. It was amazing.
That is awesome. did you ever think that, when you were becoming a teacher, like, oh, maybe I'll help kids or change like the system to stop trying to put every student in a round hole when they're a square peg? You get what I mean?
Connie. I did for many years. I was in that system for 15 years. And when I got to the point where I did leave, I had this amazing realization. I was never, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I was never going to be able to make water more wet.
True.
No matter what I tried, no matter what I implemented, no matter what I created, a whole new program, it went really well. And then someone above would go, nope, cost too much money. Can't do that. Go back to the old way. And you're just like,
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and it's such a system that's been ingrained, if that makes any sense, where it's never going to change.
It's too big.
No
Yeah.
matter what you want, there's never enough money, there's never enough time, there's never enough people, and everybody is too individual to be able to do that. Like 100%. To make it like, if you really want whatever, I mean, it's almost like you're better off homeschooling your kid if your kid really doesn't get it.
I get
if they're
that
really
now.
Not fitting in.
I really get that now. There was so many parents I had experienced this along my journey, and they removed their children from school. And we used to blame the parent or the child, saying, oh, well, they're just too out there. They can't think in a literal way. But now I think back, I'm like, yeah, no, they did it for their kids. And how amazing are they to do that for their children? I think it's phenomenal, because it's really hard. We've all had a go at homeschooling now during COVID and pandemics.
Oh, yeah.
No thanks. I would never
agree.
sign up for it.
No thanks. I was not meant, God bless all the teachers, but I was not meant to be one of them.
Me either. Even as a teacher, like my relationship with my daughter was really fractured by that, and I don't want that. No.
It's so different when it's your own kid too, and they're in their own house where they, you have that separation of school and home. So when it comes together, it doesn't work.
That's right.
It's hard to, I'm sure it's also very hard to for kids to concentrate, because there are so many distractions. You're at home, you're comfy, cozy. Do you really have to pay attention to whatever's going on your Zoom meeting? And I'm sure that answer is no. I don't even have kids. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, it's so true. So true.
Well, since we're talking about kids, take us on your mom journey. You already kind of mentioned that you had a rough go with it. So,
yeah. So I think, well, really, in a nutshell, when I was going to my obstetrician at that time, as being a principal, I knew that I could have some difficulty, because 5 years prior, I had gone through cancer, and I'd had chemotherapy and radiotherapy and surgery. And they did say to me, when you go to fall pregnant, it could be harder for you due to the chemicals, or you could go into early menopause. So I always had this thing in my mind that it might take me longer than I expect. 5 years though, it's like, oh man,
oh my goodness,
the heartache every period for 5 years. It was just intense.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I remember telling the journey that I walked into my GP's office when I was 26 saying, hey, I want to have 6 kids. Where do I go? What do I start? And I thought she was going to give me a prescription for vitamins to say, okay, you need to take this and this. But about 3 days later, instead, I had a cancer diagnosis, just because at the very end of that appointment, I was like, actually, before I go, I've just got this little thing on my neck. It's a little bit annoying. Can you just have a look? And she's like, oh, yeah, really nonchalant. And then she's like, oh, we might send you for a scan, I think. I'm like, oh, why? What? It's like, I felt it was muscular. I feel like I'd done something to my neck at the gym or something.
You never think that a little thing in your neck is going to be
anything.
It's just it's a bump in your neck.
Yes. And the partner I was with at the time was a paramedic. So he was like, it's nothing. Stop worrying about it. You worry for everything. And then to obviously have that diagnosis, well, yeah, shit really got real then.
I would say so.
So what exactly was the diagnosis besides the cancer? What was it called specifically? Sorry.
Yeah, it's called Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it's a blood cancer. So
ouch.
there was a tumor in that same spot. There was one under my left arm and one in the left chest cavity. So what they class is a stage 2. So everything was here and above. I was super lucky that I got it early. I was also lucky that it's typically a young person's cancer. So between 22 and 30. And there's a huge recovery rate. Like remission is amazing. And so if you're going to get one, that's the one you probably want.
Wow. Yeah, we had a previous guest that actually that's what she talked about. She had Hodgkin's lymphoma as well, but she had to get treated multiple times. So she is one of the few that does not consider it the lucky or the good cancer, whatever people like to call it.
And you know what? To be honest, at the time when someone said that to me, I was like, can I swear?
Yeah, of course you can.
I was like, fuck off. Why are you saying I'm lucky? You just burst my mum bubble. And now you're saying I could die or if I don't have treatment, I can't. Like, how is that lucky? So at the time, I really, really hated that person for saying that. He was a medical professional. Now I look back and I'm like, okay, so compared to pancreatic cancer or compared to a stage 4, I was lucky because I'm still here and still functioning. So I feel very blessed. And I am sorry for your past guest who had to have multiple treatments because it sucks. It really sucks. Yeah.
She is still here though. So she's also lucky, but she did have to, the whole hospital stem transplant, whole thing. She was a guest. So if you ever want to listen to it, her story's pretty crazy, which actually leads me to a question for you. Were you itchy?
Yes. Itchy arms. So I had itchy forearms here. And because I had seen my doctor 5 times leading up to this diagnosis, I'm like, oh, I'm really tired. I've got watery eyes. I've got really itchy arms and they're hot, like they feel hot. He kept giving me eczema cream.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And you're like, seriously, this could have been caught so much faster. Only because you just kept on giving me eczema cream.
Oh my
goodness.
Least
6 to 8 months. And it wasn't until I visited a friend and he said to me, Steph, do you have scabies or something? You won't stop scratching. I'm like, oh, am I? Because it got to the point I was scratching so much it was normal for everyone around me. And he said, no, you are scratching a lot. You need to get that checked. And that's kind of like around the same time I went to my other female GP to have a baby. And she was the first person that said, let's get a blood test. Let's get a scan. Let's have an ultrasound.
Let's see what is going on.
Well, thank God for your OB then.
Yes, 100%. Yes, I do. So and apparently that is a common symptom. I'm sure that your guest would have talked about that.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because she said that was one of her main symptoms was that she was really itchy. And it's actually been kind of interesting. We've had several different guests with actually many different kinds of things, and a lot of them have had itching. So it's interesting.
That is, it's almost like the body's giving you a sign, isn't it? The heat underneath or something is telling you
something.
But we're always so busy living our life, we just ignore it and say, oh, I'm just busy because it's Christmas, and I'm just tired because I'm working so much. So I think that moment in time and that experience gave me the nous that I needed to become a principal. Because had I not had that experience, I probably would have never strived to go that far because I never felt that I could. But once you go through a life-changing experience, like, move out of my way, I'm coming through, I've only got today, I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
Look out. I don't care if you're not happy that I'm only 30 and I'm your boss. It doesn't matter. I'll show you that I'm a really good boss. Like, just watch me,
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, that fades away after a while, disappointingly.
Well, and then you added kids, then it really starts to fade. I'm sure. I don't really know from experience, but I can just tell.
You'll find out soon enough.
6 months. I want you to come on. Yeah, definitely. So I think that, kids definitely, that self-doubt creeps back in no matter what. But kids help that. So I think 5 years on, we actually had to go through an IVF clinic. And I was reluctant because I went through IVF at the start of the cancer journey and had a really terrible, terrible experience.
It's rough.
Well, the whole thing was weird. You know, I thought I was going in to sit down with a whole lot of doctors saying, okay, so you're about to start chemo. This is what IVF is. This is what we're going to do next. And we're going to support you and hold this space for you. And then I went in and there was no consult rooms left. So we literally were in a broom closet taking bloods. And I'm like, whoa, who are you? And what are you doing? What is this? She's like, oh, this is just the start. And then we'll give you the drugs and off you go.
Wow.
Leaving that appointment going, wow, this is not the dream of motherhood. I don't know how people do this. But as it turns out, I was actually not able to go through IVF at that point to freeze embryo because my cancer, they were too scared my cancer would become too advanced. So I didn't get to do it. Second time round, I met with the IVF doctor exactly how I pictured it. We sat in her office, she spoke to me, and this is what IVF is. This is what we're going to do. But before we get there, I just want you to go for a whole range of tests, because if we don't have to do this, let's not. And I was like, I love you. You're amazing.
You're like, where were you 5 years ago?
Bingo. So we did that. Both my husband and I went through that process. And then in the end, I had to just have a procedure, which I can probably just easily describe as flushing out the system. So whatever was in there got flushed out, and it was really painful.
Oh yeah, I think Rietta's mom had something like that.
Yeah,
that's what my mom said.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you're messing around down there, it's never fun. So
No,
let's just
that's
be real.
True. That's true.
Yeah. So that happened, and it was successful because I was meant to go back on the Wednesday to collect the drugs to start the actual IVF process. And I called them on the Monday and said, I'm pregnant. And she's like, that's amazing. So we get that call often, and congratulations. So that was my little introduction to IVF journey. And then I was pregnant. And then from every minute on after that, I was petrified I was going to lose her.
Oh yeah.
In a miscarriage. Every time I went to the toilet, I'd look at my underpants. I'm like, is that blood? Is it miscarriage? Like, but I've only ever started talking about that about 2 months ago. I still never told anyone. Why do we do that? Why do we do that to ourselves?
Stress ourselves out.
You know what's funny is I thought that was just me because I actually had a miscarriage. And I was like, no, this is me because I've had a miscarriage. So now every single time I'm going to think I'm going to have a miscarriage. And now that I'm pregnant successfully for 14 weeks, it still doesn't stop. You're still like, nope, anything can go wrong at any time, but let's not try to think about that.
Yes. And you get past I think it's 10, 12 weeks here before you can announce it to your family. And I was like, oh man, this is crazy. Why? Because then if you do miscarry, then you're all alone. You've got no one to help you or support you. You suffer in silence. And I feel like it's changing. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like slowly we're becoming better at that.
Yeah, I think we are. And even higher situations, I had a good friend, another military spouse, that she ended up actually having to stop her pregnancy at like 20 weeks because there was a whole bunch of genetic disorders going on with the baby. And it was just, I couldn't imagine. I told her, I'm like, I don't know how I can help, but I'm here. You're not alone. Like, I couldn't imagine her going through that without anybody.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
I get what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. So being pregnant was, for me, I don't want to gloat, but I really loved it because I've dreamt about it forever, but I also was lucky to not have any complications. So I didn't have huge morning sickness. And it was probably the first time I ever felt okay in my own body and the way it looked. I was always really self-conscious about the shape, the size, the look, what others think. But being pregnant, I was like, hey, this is me. I love this. This is letting me feel good. And yeah, so pregnancy was always a good thing. When it came to birthing time, yeah, that's a whole nother story.
So you and I are swapped. Like, I would have done labor and delivery 100 times over, but being pregnant again, never again.
Yeah, right. How many children do you have? one?
I only have one because it was
Yep.
so not fun.
Too much. Why? Yeah. And a lot of women, I feel, are silenced in that part as well. Like, well, you should enjoy pregnancy because we see all those mamas on books where they're like rubbing their tummy, wearing white, walking along the beach, going, this is amazing. And some people have got their head in the toilet the whole time going, I freaking hate this.
Yep.
Mhm.
That was me.
Oh, wow. How did you feel like when you made the decision that one was your one and done? Did you feel judgment from others or get judgment from others, by
yeah.
the way?
Oh, yeah, we still do. I literally had
Mm.
somebody tell me that I was a bad mom because I wasn't giving my son a sibling to play with. And I'm like, that's not a reason to have a baby.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. My eyes are bulging from my head. I just can't believe people would do that. Well, I can because people are horrible and they just don't think.
Yeah, they don't think about what they say. They think what they do is the only way to do it, but it's not.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then it's okay to have that thought if that's for you, but then to pass that on to someone else, that judgment is where I think we're going wrong. And so, yeah. Oh, man.
The fact that you had to be pregnant to feel comfortable in your own body. And I feel the same. Like, I feel like a lot of women feel that way. And that is sad. Like,
Yeah.
that should not be how that is. You should be comfortable as yourself all the time. And it is sad that that is how most women feel. It is very hard to feel positive about your body. And I'm solely blaming media.
Well, and the fact that we don't have enough intervention so media's kind of always been there, but we don't have enough intervention to vet that rubbish to our own kids. Like my mom had body image issues and she still does, and she's like 60 something. She still says, oh, I've got to lose this mum and I've got to do this, and I don't even think she realizes what she's saying sometimes. She just says it.
She just says it, out of habit.
Yes. And now if she tries to say it in front of my daughter, I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
That's your thought. I will not make you change your mind, but my God, you are not starting that shit with my kid.
It's actually funny that you say that, though, because Jane Fonda came out not too long ago saying that she still has body issues. Because I know, and you see her, she's very slender. And she's in her 80s and she still is like,
because it's
had all
that
this
ingrained into us.
She made a comment that she had wished, because she had a bunch of work done on her face, that she just had wished that she was able to let herself age naturally instead of being so caught up in how she looks.
And I feel like there's a big market out there who are now trying to tackle that in that self-development and self-help courses. I would like something bigger, like a bigger impact, like more of a social change impact. And I think the magazines that have tried, and they've tried to use different body shape styles and inclusivity on covers, have tried and done well once and then reverted back because it didn't equal money in sales.
Yep. I was going to say, or they tried very poorly. Like, is that really what inclusivity and what other body shapes look like? I don't think so.
Yeah. The only people that I see that do it on a consistent basis is the ESPN body issue, where they show all the different athletes and how they all look very different. And they do that every year, but they're the only ones I think that do it consistently.
We've got a company here in Australia called Modi Body that are period underpants, and they are doing it better and better. Every time I see something, I'm like, that's amazing. Their last campaign included an amputee because their underpants you can put on with Velcro. So it's really looking at
I love
all
that.
types. Yes, it's not just the token different nationalities, which we see as it's a good start, but then that's it. But now looking at abilities as well as the mix, I was like, bravo, brilliant. Keep going.
I love
keep
that.
going.
I'm gonna have to buy some period panties from them just because.
They're amazing, by the way, which I can talk to when we talk about my journey after childbirth, because I can't live without them.
Oh yeah, and the journey we've touched on this before. The journey after childbirth needs to be discussed more. But in the meantime, let's hear the birth story.
The birth story. I'm really conscious of Connie now being 6 months pregnant.
Oh, you're fine. I'm not even 6 months. I'm like 14
I'll
weeks.
see 14 weeks. In 6 months, you're going to be a mum. Sorry, I got it mixed up.
Yep. Sorry.
So my journey to motherhood went really differently as I expected, because I read all of those books where the mums were rubbing their belly and it was really peaceful and it looked amazing. I also enveloped myself in natural birth advocacy, which is, birthing a baby vaginally with the help of a midwife. And the whole premise is that if you put the right music on and have a calm, dark space for you just to let your body birth the baby, not push the baby out, then it should be really easy. And it felt really natural. It felt normal. I've even called it normal birth here in Australia. And so I'm like, who would not sign up for that? Who would sign up for the experience we got? Nobody. So we paid for private classes. We went to the public hospital classes. We did everything. We thought we were super prepared. I used to do all the homework. I was a good student. I listened to all the meditations. I did the workbook and I thought, yeah, I've got this. Simple. And the first thing they say to you is, when you feel that first moment of, oh, something's happening, like a contraction, go and bake a cake. I stay at home and bake a cake. And I was like, okay. So I rang my husband this Monday and I'm like, I'm going to bake a cake. He's like, oh shit. All right, I'm coming home. I said, no, not yet. I'm okay. I'm just baking a cake. And I think they do that to distract you from coming into hospital, because it
can take a while.
Well, they don't say that in black and white, because they should say to you, your first labor could be 24 hours. So be prepared. Like,
Eat that cake.
And they don't tell you, Connie, because people will go, or they'll get a number and they'll get fixated on that number. So they just say, bake a cake, stay at home. And I think by the afternoon, late afternoon, I was like, oh no, I think it's time to go in. So we went in and I was checked and she's like, you're 1 centimeter dilated, go home, bye-bye. So I did that. And I felt like I was a bit naughty for going in too early, because they're overworked and they were a little bit stern with me. I was like, oh, I didn't know. I thought it's happening.
Yeah. I baked the cake. What happened? Was I supposed to wait to frost it? Damn it, anyhow.
I feel like, though, when you know, because they tried to send me home too, and I was like, I'm not going anywhere. And sure enough, like 7 hours later, the nurse was apologizing to me. So
you're lucky.
They also did the same thing to my sister-in-law. They told her to go home, and then the baby they actually they got food and they turned around. It was like, oh no, shouldn't have gone home. Should not have gone home.
See, there's even when it's your first and you have no clue, there's like something in you that knows.
I think so we went home and we got to nearly midnight, so maybe 11 o'clock. So I'd done they teach you to go in the shower, and then when it gets really intense, to go in the bath. So I'd had the bath and I'm like, yep, not working anymore. It's time to go in. So we were calling and they said, come on back. And then by the time I got back, she said to me, you're now 7 centimeters dilated. Well done. Yay. You're going to meet your baby tonight. So I was doing the math. I'm like, okay, that's half an hour. I can do this. This is simple. And then we got checked into the birthing suite and I was in the bath there. And I remember nudging my husband going, is this it? Like, is this labor? I don't know why women complain. What is wrong with them? Are they just weak?
You're weak, women. I'm so strong. Look at me.
And I had to totally eat my words, because even though I don't actually know the exact time frames of what happened when and next, basically went from having a joke in the bath with dim candles and the music and the right playlist and the midwife, to a room full of people I'd never met, doctors, their bosses, a pediatrician and a nurse for that pediatrician. So they had 2 people for the baby and they had 4 or 5 people for me. I don't know. And I just remember a registrar, she said to me, so your baby's the wrong way. She's posterior. She's facing down. we are going to try and turn her so she can come out. And to do this, we're going to use what they call, she actually didn't go into that much detail. We're going to use a vacuum. And if we don't do this, you're off to go and get a Caesar. And I felt like she was kind of doing the naughty corner, off you go. And so they tried to vacuum to turn her. Mind you, this entire time, this natural birth advocacy also includes no pain relief. Don't ask
God.
Yes, do not ask me why. It's part of it. I think the belief is, and I'm not educated enough, that once you have pain relief, it can stall the natural labor, right? That's what I believe.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah, so they do it with no pain relief. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I can. I've been through cancer. I can do anything. Watch me go.
I'm like, sign me up for the drugs. I don't care what these people say.
I wish I'd had been better informed about them before making any decisions. I was making decisions based on half a textbook. There was a whole nother half of pregnancy and labor textbook that was missing from my education. And I now know that. I didn't know it at the time, which is why I felt so blindsided. So when they tried to turn her, the suction cap failed. And it then failed 3 more times, which
oh my God,
I found out later on, like 2 years later, that legally they're only allowed 2 attempts, and they did it 4 times. By the 4th time, they had torn the scalp off her head.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
So that was intense. And her skull bones are deformed now because there's like a suction cap shape on her head.
Assholes.
Oh, poor thing.
She apparently is not affected. Has anyone actually looked at her to tell me that? Fuck no. That's just their guess. She'll be fine. It happens all the time. So then when that didn't work, they said, well, we're going to have to do a little cut. They called it a little cut.
Like an episiotomy?
Yes.
Okay.
But if you look up that word in our own government childbirth terms, episiotomy is missing. The word is not even there. So when I had no idea what an episiotomy was, because it was just missing from this so-called education. So when she said, I need to do a little snip, and I felt like she was cutting as she was saying it. So she had to cut from the front to the back. So from the opening of the vagina through to the anus to open up and let baby out. I told you, Connie, it's intense. I can stop. It's totally fine.
Oh my God, no, it's fine. I'm just like, no.
The one thing my mother told me not to do, because she said that was her hardest recovery, was the episiotomy. She's like, whatever you do, let yourself tear naturally, but don't let them cut you.
I'll take the C-section.
Well,
no.
If it's a choice, I'll take the C-section.
Let's talk about that in a minute. But Connie, I do just want to say, if any of this is triggering, just please, I will stop.
I'm just like kind of horrified because, again, I feel like it's something like no one talks about any of this. It's just you get pregnant. This is how you get pregnant. Then 9 months later, you give birth. They don't. And if it's complicated, they'll do a C-section.
Yeah.
There's just, that's why I'm like, guys, if you can't see, so I'm like sitting here looking slightly horrified because it's always an option that could happen.
That's the thing. People say it like, oh, it only happens to a small number of people, and they throw stats at you. But I am not a stat. I'm Steph. I'm a person, and I don't care if it's a 1%. If I'm that 1%, I don't want that to happen to anyone else. It's certainly never going to happen to my girl. She's not a number. She's a person. For God's sake, it's so wrong how they just say that as a way of going.
You weren't giving any other decision or any other choice.
Well, she didn't even wait for you.
I think that's the worst part, is you didn't even have the choice to say, no, I'd rather tear naturally or I want a C-section. Because I'm sure that was the other option.
And I tell you why. I was going to get to it, but let's say it now. The reason why, and I only found this out through a bit of a legal process we had with the hospital. The reason why they don't offer cesarean sections is because they are expensive. So for my public hospital to carry out a Caesar, it would have cost them more money than it did to make me push that baby out. And there's
And cut it.
there's actually government policy. It's called Towards Normal Birth, and it pushes public hospitals to push women to push these babies out no matter what cost to the mum and the baby, but it doesn't cost them. And that's so wrong. When I found
it is
that
very
out,
wrong.
pissed off. Like, I am the result of your policy. You need to fix your policy. And because
Yeah.
I'm not alone, there are so many women from that particular hospital at that particular time where this was happening because they were understaffed. So yes, I
Oh.
should, like, okay, girls, think about it. It's October. Everyone gets funky Christmas, New Year, and everyone has a baby in October. Like, the hospital's too full.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm guessing
thing
that you're
Good thing I'm due in June.
so I'm guessing the crazy wide episiotomy that they did technically worked because it sounds like it did.
No, still no. So
Oh,
then the
okay.
next thing was that they had to use forceps because she still wasn't turning to come out.
They
So
literally had to do everything.
They literally shoved the forceps in, they turned her, and they pulled her out. But while the forceps were in, and people can't see my hands as tongs, when they went in and turned, the blade of the forceps tore my muscle off my pelvic bone.
Oh my
God.
goodness.
The pain. Ooh.
Yes, because remembering again, ladies, no pain medication. Zero pain medication here.
No.
This
Oh,
all
no.
happened
No.
fully conscious.
Sign me up for all of the medication now.
Well, it was a really good point that when I went through and saw specialists afterwards, they're like, they should have given you an epidural to do this. Because I do want to make it really clear, at no point was my baby in danger. That's what I was told. I'm like, what's wrong with her? Why are all these people here? What's going on? Like, she's fine. Her heart rate's fine. She's fine. Nothing's wrong. And that's what they kept telling me. So at any point, if they said, oh, she's in danger, we need to get her out, but like, do anything, cut my legs off. I don't care because I want my baby to be okay.
Right.
But the entire time, that was never the messaging. It was, she's fine, just relax. It's okay. We're just going to rip her out of you. And so
oh my God.
Well, and pain medicine it's one thing with pain medicine. Like I didn't use drugs myself either, but I didn't have any of those complications. I feel like automatically when they're like, we're going to shove these forceps in your vagina, they probably should be like, let's give you some medicine so it's not so crazy.
Yes, for everyone involved. But the feeling of relief when she was out, I did get to the point where I thought I was going to die, or I was in that much pain I wanted to die.
Oh my gosh.
Jesus.
As long as she was going to be okay. And when she came out and they put her on my chest, I actually couldn't move. I was frozen. I was stunned. I was like,
you're probably in shock.
I was in total shock.
Total shock.
So my husband and I
too.
Yeah, look, now that I've had a second birth, which we'll get onto, and after the birth, you cry with elation. You're so happy. That never happened the first time.
Aww.
We never shed one tear. We were just like, okay, up you get. And the midwives threw me in the shower, out you go. And I was that damaged that I had 3 layers of stitching, and they had to wheel me in a wheelchair because I couldn't walk. I'd lost so much blood. And
oh my goodness.
it was just, but the whole thing was like, you did great. It's normal. Yep. Awesome. Clap. Steph, you're a mum. Congratulations. We're going to go back to doing that again to someone else now. Have a nice day.
Oh my gosh.
So now my question is, did they ever change that policy?
Not that I'm aware of.
And did you sue the fuck out of them? Because you should.
Well, that's a really, really good question, Connie, because we did start a legal process. And I know this is not one of the questions, so just let me know how much you want me to go into this.
The questions are just a starting point. We asked all the questions.
Yeah.
Awesome. Beautiful.
If we don't even get to all the questions, doesn't matter as long as we had a good conversation.
Exactly.
I love
That's how we roll.
Well, it took a long time for me to realize that what happened to me actually wasn't normal, because the people who I trusted most, the midwives and the hospital, because I'd worked with them for this, 8 months of being pregnant,
yeah.
they kept telling me it was normal. They kept saying, you're fine. They sent me to their physiotherapist who said I was doing great. Wow, that's amazing. You're recovering so well. This is phenomenal. And I was like, thanks. I don't feel like I am, but okay, if you tell me I am. And then my mom and sister both were not allowed in the birthing suite. It was only my husband. And they're like, this doesn't sound right. What you're describing to us doesn't sound right. And I kept saying, oh, shut up. You know nothing. My midwife knows everything. She's amazing. What I didn't realize that they were coaching me. They were totally coaching me to
because they don't want to be sued.
Bingo. And more scarily, because they believe it's okay to do that. And they call it natural childbirth. They believe it's okay for a woman to experience that during vaginal birth.
I mean,
no way.
Mind blowing.
The only way it would be okay is if you were given choices.
Yeah.
You were not. The choices were taken from you. So 100%. No, that's not okay. If you chose, cut me, do all this, and I don't want any pain medicine, and you said that, okay, that's one thing. But for them to be doing all this and you're like, what? You're not given any choices. They're already doing it before you even give like an okay to it. Like that's not okay.
In here lies the problem, because when I went through the natural birth education and did the classes, they created a birth plan for me. I was like, oh, thank you. That's so great. I just had to sign it thinking, well, yes, that's what I want. In that birthing plan is the reason why we essentially couldn't sue the hospital, because in that birthing plan, it said minimal pain. Oh, no, it said like something along the lines of preferring natural childbirth. I call it vaginal. I hate saying natural because cesarean's natural too. I'll just say that.
Yes, it is.
So I call vaginal birth is what we experienced. And even becoming a mum via adoption is natural. For goodness sake, we really need to move past this pitting against each other.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But and in that birthing plan basically outlined that what they did was something that I preferred and was I agreed to.
And you had no clue. Oh my God. That's insane.
No. But what about
I signed it. I did sign it and I felt like I understood it, but I didn't know what the consequences were for not questioning it or not having it any different.
Yeah. But what about what happened to your daughter, like her head? I feel like that couldn't have fallen into that, but I don't know, maybe it did.
I think by that point we had been through a law firm that were absolutely bullshit useless. They dragged us along for 2 years saying that we're going to get a massive lump sum of money. It's going to be a little bit hard to prove this bit. And then as their lawyers kept leaving the firm, should have been a red flag, the magistrate, or what are they called? Whatever they're called, the next layer up, they were called in from Sydney. And when they looked at the case, they're like, there's some questions here. If you go ahead with this, there's going to be a huge risk that if you lose, you're going to have to pay them. We did not have that money.
Yeah, you don't want to risk that.
And I was never going to make my family be homeless just because I'm going after an amount of money. I said to them, I will pursue this if A, I get an apology, B, they tell me that it was not normal, and C, they change the policy to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else, and then D, yeah, sure, some compensation for this to live with the injuries that I have for the rest of my life. Why not? Okay. It was never going to be enough to even pay a mortgage, like what they were talking. And so to put all that in and to go through all of that expense, it was advised that the risk was high. And so we decided to leave that law firm and get a second opinion. Went to another law firm and they said, you definitely have a case. Oh my God, this is really, it's not black and white, but it's very clear what they did to you was not their care of duty, whatever they call it, the term.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went to pursue, but they said, however, they're going to probably call you up on the stand and they will scrutinize and interrogate your integrity because you went on to have a second vaginal birth. they also will probably say that you were against having a Caesar in the first place because of your birthing plan does not allow there was no allowances for a cesarean. I'm like, what?
Oh
And
my
you
gosh.
can't talk, you can't talk in hindsight. Like, you can't give evidence to say, oh yeah, I would have had a Caesar had I known all of these risks, because it's hindsight.
Right.
So we had to make a really hard decision. And personally, the decision was me. All I wanted was resolve. I didn't particularly care about money. I just needed to feel better in my mind about feeling duped, feeling lied to. And so instead of going after money, I wrote a book. I was like, bugger it, I'm just going to write a book instead.
I love it. As a writer, I love it. That's the best. It is out there forever. Nobody can ever take it from you.
And the title, guys, is pretty much the best title I've ever heard, ever.
Oh, thanks.
So I was like, that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
And the title is Stephanie, because it's
The
your
day
book.
Yeah. The day my vagina broke, what they don't tell you about childbirth.
Oh my
Which
God, I love it.
Think at the time, I never thought it was actually going to be a book I was going to publish and sell. It was mainly a journal for me to brain dump all of this shit and lock it away and move on. Like, I really had to move on out of this trauma space because it wasn't serving me. It wasn't serving my family, my husband, my kids. I was stuck. And so I was like, I'm just going to write it, become unstuck, and then move on. Find a new career. I couldn't teach anymore. Like, I literally find it hard to stand or walk for longer than like 10 minutes because
Oh, man.
Seriously? Wow.
yeah, because the tearing of that muscle of the bone, what it meant, it's left me with pelvic organ prolapse. The reason why I call the book The Day My Vagina Broke is because the day my pelvic floor broke does have no impact.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's yep. Mhm.
And so it is, because my pelvic organs actually literally slide down into the canal of my vagina every day and hang out of the opening. So it is broken in a sense. And a lot of women, so this is going to blow your mind if you don't already know, 1 in 2 women will have experience with pelvic organ prolapse in their life.
What
that's
in
50
the fucking world? That is definitely something they don't tell you in health class.
I believe it because I worked in physical therapy for a long time, and my main boss specialized in pelvic floor physical therapy, and her books were filled to the brim all the time.
100. That's 50% of us, right? The thing is, what happened to me in childbirth is preventable. Prolapse is not always preventable. And I think that's a whole nother, probably a whole nother show, as Oprah would say, because it's very complex. It's not straightforward. But with those, looking at that high rate, I mean, we know so much about breast cancer, but we know nothing about pelvic organ prolapse. And this is why I really would love, obviously, for you guys to use this show to hopefully your listeners go, what a what? I'm going to Google that. And then when they do, they're like, oh my God, I've got those symptoms. I'm probably going to go and check out and see a women's health physio, because if I've got prolapse, there is a very good chance you can treat it if you are stage 1 or 2. Stage 3 and 4, which is where I'm at, it's much harder, not impossible. Like, I can't fix it, but I can learn to live with it better. There's no choice. You don't have a choice.
You're just trying to make it just a little bit easier. Like, that's all you can really do, right?
You're just trying to keep living a positive life. I mean, people have amputations and then they go on to go on a healing journey to find the new normal. I would say that is like me. My pelvic floor was amputated off the bone. I'm now finding my new normal through this journey. We've looked into surgery. Sorry, you go, Connie.
Oh, no, you go. I have a question after you're done, though.
Oh, sure. The last 6 years have been spent on this journey trying to find a solution. I've got my resolve from the grief and loss, and that's ongoing. It's not finished. I don't know if it's ever finished. But the fixing of the physical stuff, I'm still on that journey. And by writing the book and putting it out there for the world, I hope the people above who write the policies think, actually, shit, we probably should look at that. Let's talk about that, or like you've referred to many times, Connie, we don't talk about it at school. Let's talk to girls about their pelvic floor as teenagers. At the same time we talk to them about periods, there are ways of preventing pelvic floor damage. me being an athlete prior to birth and then pregnancy could have meant that my pelvic floor had some dysfunction anyway. We are not to know that now because I'd never had a check beforehand. But there are so many ways to prevent things like this happening to everyone. And that's what I'm all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now my question, how, if you have basically no pelvic floor, were you able to give birth a second time? Because I've heard the pelvic floor is pretty important when you have a baby.
Do you know, I've just finished literally this morning I'm writing an ebook on tips and tricks for living with prolapse. Having another baby with prolapse is the number one question I'm asked, is like, how did you have another baby? And then they secretly want to say, how did you even have sex to have a baby?
That was going to be my question. I was going to be like, I don't know if this is too personal, and I don't know if it actually affects it or not, because it
does.
I don't like
totally
painful. Is it hard? Yeah. So all the questions.
Yeah.
So we have both for you. Now answer mine then hers.
So I guess the chicken or the egg comes first. I think to be intimate again will be different depending on your body, because everyone's prolapse is different. Everyone's internal vagina and body are different. For me, I can share my story with the world, but I also have a husband who I respect his privacy. And what I do say to that is that it's never been the same for either of us, ever.
That sucks.
Yeah, that's hard.
It really does. And I think the benefit of having 2 young children is that you're always tired. So it's okay for now, but there will come a time where intimacy wants to come back into a marriage, and we're going to work on that.
Yeah.
So to be able to have intercourse, there's a lot that comes into play. There's really not a lot of spontaneity because you can't be full. Like if you need to do a poo, you can't have sex because it rubs and it's really gross and uncomfortable. So yeah, it's never been the same.
So all those things have to align.
You gotta put in some work. You gotta put in some work before it happens. That's
and by
what
the
it sounds
time,
like to me.
Yeah. And a lot of the time, so we have this, which we'll talk about, this community of amazing women who all have prolapse. I look up to some of our community members and I am in awe. I'm learning from them how to be intimate without intercourse. And that's brilliant. I think you can still be intimate. I'm like, I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'm happy to learn. Because we grew up in an age where sex was just a one-way thing really for the guy, not so much for the girl. But I think that in itself is going to be better overall. But then to be able to do it this time, to fall pregnant with my son, I got really drunk at my daughter's first birthday.
There you go.
A lot of people say that, and it can be painful, but it's not intolerable. Like I don't just suffer through it. And so then to be pregnant with my son, and then let's just jump back a step. I didn't just fall pregnant for the sake of it. It was a process where I met with surgeons. I met with a different obstetrician. I asked everyone, can you have a baby with prolapse? Is it going to make my prolapse worse? How do you birth a baby? Like I have to have a Caesar this time. And basically I got all the information I needed to make an informed decision that yes, I can fall pregnant again. And funnily enough, during second trimester, as your belly goes out, your prolapse and your pelvic floor move up. And so it's actually it relieves the symptoms for.
Well, there you go.
There's
one plus.
For just a little while.
Well, there's one plus.
Absolutely. And the reason why I went and had another baby is because when I was talking to surgeons, they said to me, if we ever perform any surgery on you, you can't go and have another baby. You have to be 100% certain.
You're done.
We were happy with one and done. Like who wants to go through that again? And then unfortunately, Rihanna, just like you, we had that, but what about Elsie? She might want a sibling.
Yeah.
And look, I always wanted a big family. I always wanted 6 kids. Always, always, always. So then we said to ourselves, we did a little deal. It was October. If we're not pregnant by December, let's call it. We're blessed. We are fulfilled. We are a family. We are awesome. We don't need another baby for the sake of having another baby. for our daughter. It definitely did come into play, of course, I'm not going to lie. And so when I was pregnant the next month after her first birthday, the pregnancy was pretty good. The birthing itself was magical. It was the healing birth that I really longed for, I guess, without knowing. Yeah, I had an obstetrician who walked me through it for the 9 months and held my hand, and he really, really held that space for me and said, Steph, I think birthing vaginally again will be so much easier for you because the damage is done. The pelvic floor won't be there to kind of restrict it in. And in my mind, I was like, hang on a minute. So my bladder sits at the opening of my vagina. The baby's coming out on top. Aren't all my internal organs going to fall out first? And then the baby, like the force of the baby.
Oh my God.
And he said to me, you know what? It's okay. We're going to roll you onto your left side. We're going to let the bladder fall away. We can empty it with a catheter if we need. And then the baby will come out. And that's exactly what happened. And then, of course, my husband and I cried when he was there because I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, that's so awesome.
It's so sad, though, that you didn't get that with your daughter, though. Like, that's so sad. But it's so great that you had the second one. It's like,
Yes.
It's a real.
And I feel like I love to be able to talk to that now because I've had experience in both. I can see where the idea of natural vaginal birth comes from because it is so beautiful. It's hard work. It's labor. It's called labor for a reason. You got to work. You got to work, honey. But now that I've
6 months from now.
See, the thing that I like to say about labor, because everybody says it's painful, and I feel like pain has a very negative connotation. It's not painful. It's intense.
Yes, and that was what we were taught too, that they're not called contractions, they're called surges. And if you try and change that mindset, it won't be as hard. But looking back, I mean, I'm an A-type personality. If I say I'm going to be a principal, guess what I am? If I say I'm going to be a triathlete, guess what? I do it. So for me to not think of something as painful or to not think of something as a contraction, I was nodding, saying, oh yeah. But on the inside, I'm like, what the fuck?
It's a contraction, buddy.
Yeah,
just
like
call a spade, all right?
I'm too black and white then, but through a lot of work, a lot of self-development work and a lot of healing journey, I'm realizing now that the power of meditation and mindfulness, I wish I had that then, because I do think that you can change your thinking, your patterns, but you need a lot of work and you need a lot of help. And it was just like, Stephanie, stop worrying. You're so paranoid. Let's unpack that for you. Tell me about that fear. Let's work through that. None of that happened, which is how I'm going to change childbirth. That's my thing.
Yes. I love that.
So because of like your situations, the both births, a good one and the not so good one, is that why you like have a respect for like the C-section, for even just like adopting a child? You're like, no,
yes.
It's just, it is.
Yes.
It's motherhood.
Yes, because this pitting against, well, I had a Caesar and then, oh, you're too posh to push, or I got the easy way out with a Caesar. All of that is bullshit because
You're still getting ripped open. Okay. So
well, I didn't actually know what a Caesar was because we weren't allowed to talk about it in the natural birth camp. So when I went to my OB and said I have to have a Caesar, he explained to me what it was exactly. And I was like, ooh, that doesn't actually sound easy. And it doesn't sound like it would be something that I would benefit from.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it's a major surgery.
It is. And I wish I would have had one first. That's fine. What I'm probably trying to get at is that everyone's experience is individual. And if the minute we don't respect that, then we're just fighting against each other. And we need each other. Look, some women choose to free birth. I don't know if you've heard of that, but
what in the hell is that?
You basically go into the forest or in a beach with your partner.
Absolutely not. Give me the hospital. I'm sorry.
No midwife, no experience, and you just do it. And that goes along a spectrum. And then you go to a home birth, with a midwife, and then you go to a birthing center, and then you can go to be in a hospital with a midwife, and then you can go to be in a hospital with an obstetrician. So there's an entire spectrum of how you can choose to birth. Only we don't have a choice. Quite often, there is no choice. You're told how to do it. You're told what to do and how to do it, and it's just not okay. Like,
I do believe actually our one cousin was super into having like a really natural birth, and like was real adamant, like, this is how it's happening. And then it got to, sorry, no, it has to be for you and your child a C-section. And it is what it is. Like, you should just, now you have to be happy that you have your baby. It sucks. It wasn't the way you wanted it to be, but sometimes you just don't have a choice. Also, I'd like to say that it's just not for me, that whole natural thing. I mean, I get it, but just give me the doctors and the medicine. It's just my point of view, guys. Don't come and hate me, all right?
Not at all. And no one should. No one should, because
that's the thing, right?
Is no one else's business.
Yeah. Well, and that's why you started the Brave Mama community, I'm assuming, is to bring everybody together. Well, at least you prolapse ladies.
Yeah, and that's what it was. It was basically, as I was writing the book, there's an entire chapter called Workarounds, which is all the tips that I have. You know, if you tell me that I can't do this, then I'll find another way. Like, I'm just that type of person. And so when I was writing the book, I was like, actually, I probably should start sharing this now. Why am I holding this information until it's published? Like, my publisher knows it, I know it. But so I just started a Facebook group with some family and friends, and now it's grown to over 1,600 women from around the globe, from like 25 to 65 plus. I mean, I don't know where in the world you would have that much in common with people from that huge demographic. I'm really proud of the community.
I love it.
Super, super, super protective as well, because a lot of people there still can't talk to their husbands or partners about their prolapse.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah. And so we support them, and we definitely hold that space. I've got an amazing girl on my admin team. She's from New Zealand. She's lived with prolapse. She's had surgery. She's got a reoccurring prolapse now. And we work together just to share information, provide support, do what we can. We often get on calls privately on Zoom and just say, hey, talk to me. What's going on? Where are you up to?
That's amazing.
Yeah, because it's such a hard journey. It's so hard to navigate. If you Google that, it will take you everywhere but nowhere. Mm-hmm. You really need someone who's walked this path before you to say, you know what, that surgeon who's offered you surgery in a heartbeat for $37,000, get a fucking second opinion. Don't go with him. He's too quick. You know, there's a process. You can try pessary, you can try exercise, you can go to a physio. So we do that with them. Just to make sure that they can make a proper decision for them.
And it's like of those, it's one of those things. It's like, why wasn't this in my biology class or whatever? And then you go online and you're like, and this is still not really all that useful. Thank you. Have a nice night.
Yeah.
You know what? My big dream next is to write the book The Day My Vagina Was Fixed.
Oh my God, that'd be great.
I think it's going to be a long time coming, but with the use of technology, 3D printing, I think we'll get there. But in the meantime, I do this every single day as a passion project, so it doesn't happen to my girl Elsie.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. So is that where the podcast came from as well?
Yes. Oh my God, yes. Because I wrote a book and I put it out to the world thinking, hey, I'm going to change the world. Ta-da! And then you do it and it's crickets. It's like, hey, why didn't you change that policy? Did you not read my book? Then you realize you were very, very naive. One book doesn't change the world. It just starts the conversation. Mm-hmm. The podcast is now to continue the conversations and bring people in. So it's more of it's a two-way thing where we can educate people and they can tune in to all the different episodes without having to read the book, or it goes to the next level. You know, we're talking to experts here that I couldn't include in the book because I didn't know them back then.
Yeah.
And the more
you don't know what you don't know.
Yes. And the more we talk about it, the more that either one of you guys might say to your other cousin who says, oh, I think I've got prolapse. You go, hey, listen to this podcast. You might be able to find out some really cool things there. to continue in that conversation. And we also made a short film as well about invisible disability. So I'm trying to, the next big thing is about tackling health literacy, what we teach our kids in school. That's probably a next year project. I've only got like, how many more days of December? Not enough time.
Not much.
Yeah, not much.
But I'm ready to conquer this space with, and I do want to point out, with the help of the women who have been walking ahead of me for so long. Sherry Palm, she runs APOPs in the States, and she has members, over 19,000 members in her group. She's the biggest pelvic organ prolapse advocate I have ever met. And so I'm walking with her. She is ahead of me. She's been doing this for so much longer than me. I just want to add another voice to her band, her marching band. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
But we've got to work together on this. We can't be doing our own thing because it gets diluted.
Yeah. So amazing.
So from a mom's perspective, okay, this is like a totally different subject, kind of. So like from a mom's perspective and also from like a principal perspective, what would you change about childcare, and what would you change about like the hospital system and birth and all that? I mean, you kind of already covered birth. I mean,
Yeah, you already covered that.
Yeah, I mean, they go hand in hand a little bit. I think the birth education system has to change. The 2-hour class you get is never long enough. I would like to see mothers being held for that whole entire 9-month journey, so that, kind of, you're at 14 weeks. In a couple of weeks, I'd like for you to be able to meet a psychologist to talk through any fears. I want you to talk to an obstetrician.
I think I would need months. I think I'd need all 9 months, honestly.
Well, good. So be it, right? So be it. I want you to have access to a women's pelvic floor physio who can assess you now. I want you to have access to a doula.
I was already told that I should start doing squats and other pelvic floor, things.
Well, squats really aren't what you do. Yeah, squats are not what you do for pelvic floor.
No,
this is what this one lady was like. Yeah, you should start doing squats. I was like,
no, squats have nothing to do with your pelvic floor.
I'm like doing these ones with my hands. No, you do need to see a pelvic floor women's health physio. Yes. Don't listen to anyone who's not one, because they will tell you the wrong
They have
shit.
no idea.
Yeah. So, and then I want you to be able to go and see a doula who can teach you about postpartum and how they can support you with the right amount of nutrition and food and sleep. And then talk to a midwife about their view on birth, so that when you get to the end, you're like, all right, I've got all this information. I've got this. And I want someone to talk to you about potential complications and what to do in that situation for you and your partner, to go, I'm going to advocate for you, because mummy, you can't advocate for yourself when you're in labor.
Yeah.
Your partner needs to know what to do, what to say, when to say it, because you can't.
Yes, absolutely.
That's how I would change childbirth. Childcare is something, it's a whole new kettle of fish. I don't know what it's like in the States, but here it's a system that seems to be, there's a public sector and a private sector. Again, they're pitted against each other.
Just like us.
Really expensive.
Just like
some of them in Sydney, you're paying like $200 a day plus. So like, why go to work? I think we need to be better at supporting parents to stay at home longer with their children if they choose to. Some parents, like me, I was a professional woman. I liked going to work. I liked stimulating my brain. I like the balance. Balance is good. I love being a mom, but staying home for 5-7 days a week, wiping bums and cooking food is not stimulating enough for my brain. I like to have 3 days at home or 5 days at home and 2 days getting up, getting dressed, going into the office and having lunch and going to the toilet, and really basic stuff that I think we judge other mums for wanting that bit of themselves. Steph Thompson, before a mum, was a professional. I miss her. I would love to be able to do that. So childcare needs to better support mums in how they do it. Again, system's too big. I got a bit broken, and I don't have the solutions for that right now. Yeah.
Because it's a hard answer, and it would probably be a very like large and multiple, it'd be multiple layered answer, because there's not really a one size fits all.
100%.
Right.
All right. Last and final fun question. What's your favorite kind of tea? Because we know you love tea.
Oh, yes. I've actually got here's one I prepared earlier. It's actually my favorite. It's a rooibos tea and it's non-caffeinated, so I can drink it all the time. But it's chocolate and mint. Chocolate and mint feels like I'm having dessert, but it's healthy-ish. You know, I could drink it all day.
Ooh, that sounds delightful. I need to find me some chocolate and mint tea.
I need to send you guys some.
That's not at all what I was expecting.
Yeah, me
from,
either.
like, a tea. Like, I don't think I've ever even heard of a chocolate mint tea before. That's why I'm like, that's not at all.
You know what? When we get off the call, I'm going to grab your address and send you some because it's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait. I love tea.
Beautiful.
I love getting stuff from our not listeners, but from our
guests.
Yes. Oh my God. I can't even speak.
Baby brain has started.
I love it.
Oh, great.
That's so cool.
Well, do you have anything else to impart on our listeners?
No, that's it. Thank you very much. I really, really enjoyed talking to you both. It's phenomenal.
It's
I
been
want to
fun.
talk to you again when you're a mama. Come on the show.
Oh God.
Yeah, we really enjoyed having you too. And of course, as always, we will put in the show links, all of the links to Stephanie, all her group, her book, her podcast, all the things, so you guys can connect with her however you would like.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
So this is how to deal when shit gets real, guys. Thank you for joining us. And we will be releasing episodes bi-weekly. And we'll see you next episode.